Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So pretty interesting angle today, but I wanted to talk about CM Punk. I know I've been making UFC content, but I also have a deep love for WWE wrestling. But also CM Punk kind of does have a connection with the UFC. But primarily what I want to talk about is the news, obviously, that we heard about with AEW releasing CM Punk. There was a backstage altercation, gone to a fight, essentially was released from AEW. And kind of the video that I wanted to talk about in this video is what is really next for CM Punk, right? So let's get into it. CM Punk obviously has had a pretty interesting career, not only as a wrestler, not only as someone in the UFC, but just honestly looking at it from a perspective of a fan, what type of career he's had. He had a really interesting career in WWE where he obviously rose to honestly the top, the peak of what you want to reach in WWE. Obviously, there was a big scandal with him going out on the mat, on the mic, essentially just tarnishing Triple H's name, WWE, what they stand for, kind of how they push certain people to be their top guy, almost like John Cena, right? Ends up getting released from WWE back in 2014 with that massive scandal. And then on top of that, he then goes to AEW, right? We also see him in the UFC, where everything is real. He's been training. And then obviously we saw how that ended up, him versus Mickey Gall. And then he went to the AEW, had a pretty somewhat of an interesting 2-year career, I guess, at AEW, and then recently has this incident that happened. One thing you cannot deny about CM Punk is that he finds a way to get people to pay attention to his name, right? I think one thing that he's really good at is he attracts an audience that I think honestly is, and I don't want to use this word just like real because it's kind of vague, but I think people watch him because of what he does when he performs, right? He kind of comes out and he just seems like an average, normal guy, right? Just someone who, like, to be honest, you would think would just be like a friend of yours, right? And he just comes across as someone who's not that whole poster boy, John Cena, Rock, Hulk Hogan kind of image, right? He's kind of this guy who is not only mysterious, he has charisma, but he's also someone like us, and I think people really like that. And I think that is starting to be the image of someone like Cody Rhodes that I think a lot of people kind of relate to, right? The whole people who are wrestling fans, people who have been fans for a very long time, I think are able to relate to him. And I think people have been able to relate to CM Punk. Regardless of him losing matches in the UFC, the scandal that happened in WWE, the scandal that happened in AEW, I think one thing that we always come back to with CM Punk is that I think we care about his well-being and we care about what happens next with him. And you can't really say that for a lot of people, right? Once they leave WWE, we kind of forget about them. It happens. There are legends, but there's also CM Punk, who arguably has had the most scandals, probably, I would honestly say, out of any wrestler that has reached different audiences, not only in WWE, but the wrestling world, right? So myself being a fan of him, what is next for him? What happens, right? I think for someone who is not only able to make such a large impact on the media, he's such a great story when things come out. I think there's so many avenues that this could go with. Now, the first thing that I think comes to mind is when people think of WWE, right? Is he going to go back to Vince McMahon, right? Would Vince McMahon allow him to go back into WWE? That's pretty interesting. I don't know. I've always known Vince has always said what's best for business, right? Whatever, if that's a real slogan or not. But honestly, would that make sense, right? Would it make sense to have him come back for WrestleMania 40? Would it make sense for him to have a big match, right? There's all this heat that's going on. Does he make a return, right? Would this like really make sense? I don't know. I mean, obviously CM Punk, I think, kind of knows what his worth is, and I think there's a certain amount that he would want if he were to come back. but also the WWE, I'm sure, would have a lot of stipulations in order for him to even come back. Would they just allow it? I mean, I don't know. Um, if we talk about AEW, I personally don't think they'll allow him to go back. I don't think that would be a smart business move. He's already been there for 2 years. It's clear he didn't really like his time during that period too much. Does he go back to the UFC? Obviously not. They're not going to let him in there. And I'm not disregarding, he's probably a good martial artist, better than most people, right? But for the most part, why would you let him back into a place where he went like 0-2, right? I think he had 2 fights. But I think there is something to be said about him possibly going back into WWE. I think it would be honestly a really interesting move, and I think it would bring a lot of fans back. I think a lot of fans of his would honestly watch WWE again if he came back. And I think that's large part of the reason why people watch AEW, right? Like, you don't watch WWE because you just love WWE. You watch it because you enjoy the people that are on there. You enjoy the wrestlers that are wrestling, right? There's storyline. There's history to it. I think if you were to go back, it's almost like a full circle kind of thing. So I think there's so much just when it comes to like the creative side of wrestling, what could happen for him. And back to kind of his career, I think we have seen so many times where people almost tarnish someone for mistakes, for having a bad image on social media, in the news. Doesn't really mean they're a bad person overall. Whatever people may think, we personally don't know him for who he actually is. But I think he just brings so much to the table. I think he brings such an interesting story, and he's always that person that there's going to be something that's going to happen that's going to grab your attention. And when he's on the microphone, arguably, I would say he's one of the best people to talk on the microphone, in my opinion. So I'm pretty interested. I'm pretty interested to see what's going to happen. It's always mysterious with him. You know what's going to go on. And yeah, I just know he's a great talent, and it would be interesting to see what would kind of happen next. Because wherever he goes, people want to watch what's happening. And quite frankly, I recently went to a WWE match in Boston, WWE SmackDown. I feel like I say WWE so fast. Honestly, was not a great show, to be completely honest with you, and just kind of looking at who their current roster is. It's not great. It's honestly, I don't think it's that great, to be completely honest with you. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I don't know. I think they're just people that I think the WWE is either not pushing them right or their image is not right. But anyways, that's another topic for a different video. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out. Bye.